There is a property on the Richmond River in coastal New South Wales, in a suburb where the median house price is $900,000. It has been fully renovated. It has a new kitchen, new floors, a deck, a pool in the complex, and a boat ramp to the river at the end of the street. PropTrack values it at $381,000. It is listed at $140,000. And it has been sitting there since October 2023. That is what this video is about. 5 houses in New South Wales, all under $150,000, all with something the listing decided not to say up front. We are starting at the most expensive and working our way down to $100,000. By the time we get there, you will understand exactly why cheap in New South Wales is never just cheap. Starting with number 5, 22 Wirra Street, Mungindi, New South Wales, $149,000. Before we go anywhere near the house, we need to talk about where it sits, because in every property on today's list, the location is not just background information, it is the entire story. Mungindi straddles the New South Wales and Queensland border, divided by the Ballina River, the physical and political line between two states. The 2021 census recorded 487 people on the New South Wales side and 124 on the Queensland side, a combined total of 611. In 2016, the town had 747 people. That is a population decline of nearly 20% in 5 years. If that rate continued through to 2026, you would be looking at a town that has lost roughly a third of its population in a decade. The hospital sits on the Queensland side. The two pubs sit on opposite sides of the border, one in New South Wales, one in Queensland, which is one of those facts that sounds invented, but is simply what happens when a river splits a town in two. The railway line that once connected Mungindi to Sydney was shut in 1974 after severe flood damage rendered the section inoperable, and it has never been restored. There is no scheduled commercial air service. Agriculture, cotton, wheat, wool, beef cattle drives the local economy. The town is 798 kilometres from Sydney by road, which is further than the distance from Sydney to Melbourne. The house at 22 Wirra Street is a 2-bedroom home with enclosed verandas at the front and side, a good-sized lounge room, a separate kitchen, and a bathroom with a combined shower and bath. The block is 1,138 square metres, fully fenced across 2 titles that have been amalgamated for rating purposes. The agent notes it has recently been painted inside and out, with new floor coverings throughout. There is an undercover concrete area at the back for entertaining, and the listing mentions, almost as a bonus, that the property is currently tenanted at $220 per week. That detail is worth sitting with. $220 per week on a $149,000 purchase price gives you a gross rental yield of approximately 7.7%. In isolation, that sounds appealing. But the yield is only as strong as the tenant pool that sustains it. And the tenant pool for a rental property in a town of fewer than 500 people, a town that lost 20% of its residents in 5 years, is not a deep one. The people who rent in Mungindi work in agriculture, education, health, or government services. As the population contracts, so does the number of people looking for somewhere to live. The price reflects a calculation about yield against risk, about what happens to a rental property when the town around it keeps getting smaller, and about what it means to own an asset at the far end of the Newell Highway in a community where the railway left 50 years ago and never came back. There is also the practical reality of what owning an investment property in Mungindi involves. Property managers in the region are sparse. Maintenance calls requiring tradespeople means someone travelling a significant distance. Vacancy periods in a shrinking town can stretch without warning. And when you eventually want to sell, your buyer pool is whoever, at that moment, is specifically interested in a 2-bedroom house in this community. The listing does not mislead on any of this. The tenancy is real, the renovation is real, the block is real, but $149,000 is the number you get when you price in everything the listing does not say. Number 4 is where we get back to the property from the opening. 37/586 River Street, West Ballina, New South Wales. $140,000 to $147,000. West Ballina's median house price is approximately $900,000. That is not a typo. The typical home in this suburb, on the Richmond River, about 740 kilometres north of Sydney, costs $900,000. The property at 37 River Street is listed for a maximum of $147,000. The listing is genuinely appealing. A fully renovated one-bedroom home with a new kitchen, new flooring throughout, a spacious lounge room that opens to an east-facing deck, a renovated bathroom, a back deck with laundry, and a single lock-up garage with a remote roller door. Pool and BBQ facilities in the complex. A boat ramp and jetty nearby to access the Richmond River directly. No stamp duty, no council rates, no body corporate fees. The agent calls it a perfect opportunity for hassle-free modern living. PropTrack estimates the property's value at $381,000. It has been on the market since October 2023. By any measure, that is over 2.5 years of the market looking at this listing, reading that price, and saying no. The address tells you what you need to know. 37/586 River Street means Site 37 within a residential land lease community. In a land lease, you buy the home, but not the land it sits on. The land stays with the park operator. You pay weekly or fortnightly site fees to stay where you are, and those fees can go up over time. The listing correctly points out there is no stamp duty and no body corporate, both of which are true, but it does not mention the site fees, because those are an ongoing cost that continues for as long as you own the home, not a one-off purchase expense. Then there is the river. West Ballina sits in the Northern Rivers region of New South Wales, and anyone who followed the news in February 2022 knows what that means. The Richmond River, the Wilsons River, and the Clarence River, the entire Northern Rivers system, experienced flooding that broke century-old records. The NSW government responded with the Resilient Homes program, committing $800 million to buying back the most at-risk flood-affected properties in the region and removing homes from the floodplain. Properties in Ballina and the surrounding area were among those reviewed. Real estate agents across the Northern Rivers now routinely note in listings whether a property was built above the 2022 flood level, because that single fact has become one of the most powerful pricing signals in the entire region. When a land agent goes out of their way to specify that a property sits above the 2022 flood level, it tells you something about how much the 2022 flood level matters to buyers in this market. The listing for 37 River Street does not make that claim. A renovated home, a pool, a boat ramp, $900,000 median surrounding it, $140,000 asking price, 2.5 years on the market. There is a version of this listing where everything the agent wrote is true: the renovation, the deck, the river access, and a completely separate version where the title and the flood history explain everything the price is doing. Both versions are accurate. Buyers have had over 900 days to decide which one matters more to them. Number 3 takes us to a completely different part of the state and a completely different type of catch. 66 Aria Street, Ardlethan, New South Wales, $129,000. Ardlethan is a small service town in the Coolamon Shire of the Riverina, sitting at the intersection of the Burley-Griffin Way and the Newell Highway. Population at the 2021 census, 472 people. The town has a long and layered history. Gold was discovered here in the 19th century. Tin mining began in 1912 and sustained the town through the early 20th century, and the railway arrived in 1908. Passenger rail services ceased in 1983. The line remains open for freight. Ardlethan is known in certain circles as the home of the Kelpie, because it was in this district that the original Kelpie dog raised her first litter, founding the breed. Griffith is about 85 kilometres west. Wagga Wagga is about 110 kilometres east. The median house price in Ardlethan sits at approximately $180,000, which is itself an indication of what the broader market for property in a town of 472 looks like. Now here is what the listing at 66 Ardlethan Street actually says, and I want to read this carefully because the language matters. The present commercial building has the possibility of being converted into a home, subject to council approval. The current zoning permits use as a residence upon approval by the Shire Council via a development application process, currently set up with an open office area, office, kitchenette and toilet. The building is set on a large 1,000 square metre parcel of land with rear entry. There are no bedrooms, there is no bathroom, there is a toilet, which is different. There is no kitchen in the residential sense. There is a kitchenette, which typically means a sink and a bench surface. What you are looking at is a commercial building, an office, that has not yet been approved as a home, is not currently functioning as a home, and cannot legally be used as a home until a development application is submitted to Coolum Shire Council, assessed and approved with whatever conditions council sees fit to attach. The listing is honest about this. It says, subject to council approval, and via a development application process. But what the listing cannot tell you is how long that approval takes, what conditions council might attach, what changes would be needed to bring an office up to residential standards, or what a builder would charge to do it. Buying 66 Ardlethan Street is not buying a house. It is buying the land, the building, and the right to apply to council to start a process that might eventually produce one. What makes this more interesting is that the land itself, 1,000 square meters in a residential part of a small NSW town, has genuine value as a building block for something. Someone with the time, patience, and capital to navigate the development process, engage a builder, satisfy a council certifier, and then live in or sell the result might genuinely find value here. But that person is not the average buyer scrolling through a property listing on a Saturday afternoon. They are a specific kind of buyer with a specific skill set and a specific tolerance for process and uncertainty. And at $129,000 in Ardlethan, the asking price reflects exactly how narrow that pool is. Number 2 is the most straightforward property in today's video, and it still has a catch most buyers wouldn't find on their own. 57 Adelaide Street, Moree, New South Wales, $125,000. Moree is a real town. It has 7,070 people, according to the 2021 census. It has a hospital, it has shops, it has schools and a TAFE. The Newell and Quandialla highways cross here, making it a genuine road junction in northern New South Wales. There is a regional airport. The town is famous for its artesian bore baths, hot springs fed by the Great Artesian Basin, first tapped in 1895, which have attracted visitors for over a century and which remain genuinely remarkable. At 665 kilometers from Sydney, Moree is remote, but it is not a hamlet. It is a functioning regional centre with actual infrastructure. And Moree floods, with a frequency and severity that its own council does not try to soften. The Moree Plains Shire Council's flooding page states the following, and I want to quote this directly because no paraphrase does it justice. History tells us that large floods have occurred and will occur again. That sentence appears on the official council website in the section describing flood risk management for the Moree area. Major floods have struck in 1955, 1971, 1974, 1976, 2011, 2012, 2021, and 2022. The October 2022 event, part of the triple La Niña that devastated the eastern states, saw the Moree River peak at 10.5 meters with around 4,000 residents told to evacuate, and wiped out an estimated 120,000 hectares of wheat in the surrounding district that was almost ready for harvest. The 2012 flood peaked at 10.69 meters, the second highest ever recorded, and inundated hundreds of homes. As recently as July 2025, the council was publicly consulting on a draft revised flood chapter for its development control plan, meaning how flood risk is regulated and managed in Moree is an active, unresolved policy process, still being debated right now. The house at 57 Adelaide Street is a 3-bedroom timber home on a 970 square metre fully fenced block. Every bedroom has built-in wardrobes. The kitchen has a gas cooktop a wall oven, and a pantry. The combined dining and lounge room has a wood fire. The bathroom has a large shower, a bath, and a vanity. There is a separate toilet, 2 wall air conditioners, an older shed, a concreted outdoor area, and a dog enclosure and chicken coop out the back. By every measurement of what makes a family home functional and comfortable, 57 Adelaide Street qualifies. 3 bedrooms, a fireplace, a proper bathroom, a large yard, all for $125,000. This is a genuinely good house. 3 bedrooms, a fireplace, a proper bathroom, a large yard, all for $125,000. The issue is not the house at all. The issue is that buying it means accepting a flood history the council itself describes as ongoing, in a town 665 kilometres from Sydney, where the Moree River has proven more than once that it will not wait for anyone's plans. The bore baths are genuinely wonderful. The artesian water rising from underground since 1895 is one of those things that makes Moree unlike anywhere else in New South Wales. But the river does not care about the bore baths. At $125,000, both of those things are priced in. And number 1, the cheapest property in today's video, and the one that takes the most time to fully understand. 31 Margaret Street, Quandialla, New South Wales, $100,000. Quandialla is a village in the central west of New South Wales, 412 kilometres west of Sydney, at the far edge of the Weddin Shire, on the flat plains that stretch west toward the Lachlan River. In every direction, it is a significant distance from anything. Grenfell is 46 kilometres northeast, Young is 65 kilometres southeast, West Wyalong is 57 kilometres to the west. The Weddin Mountains are visible from the edge of town. In the 1950s, Quandialla had 3 motor garages, 2 stock and station agents, a cinema, sales yards handling up to 10,000 head of livestock at a time, and a central school with over 230 pupils. The town was a working centre for the surrounding wheat belt, with enough activity to justify a hospital of its own. By 2009, the school had 50 pupils. The 2016 census recorded 197 residents. The 2021 census recorded 163. That is a decline of nearly 17% in 5 years, and a long, steady decline across several decades before that. Today, Quandialla has a general store, the Bland Hotel, a public swimming pool, a bowling club, and a central school. The median household income is $877 per week. There is no major supermarket. There is no hospital. There is no scheduled public transport. The nearest emergency services are in Grenfell, 46 kilometres away. The property at 31 Margaret Street sits on a 1,012 square metre block. It is a fibro and iron roof home with a wraparound veranda and original hardwood flooring throughout. Inside, 2 bedrooms, a front living room with wall unit air conditioning, and an original kitchen with a freestanding gas oven. The bathroom has been partially demolished and currently consists of a shower over a bathtub and a vanity, with a separate toilet off the laundry. Outside, a fully fenced yard, an attached single carport, and 2 garden sheds. There is also a converted water tank, now used for storage, and then there is the haberdashery store. Sitting on the same block, constructed of timber weatherboard with an iron roof, is a former commercial shop. It still has the large front display window. It still carries its original hand-painted signage. Inside is one open room. A haberdashery sold sewing supplies, thread, buttons, ribbons, needles, fabric trim. Someone operated one in Quandialla, almost certainly in the mid-20th century, when the town had enough residents to sustain that kind of specialised retail. Think about what that required. A population large enough that someone calculated they could make a living selling sewing notions to the surrounding district. That calculation worked once. The shop closed at some point, and the building has been standing on this block ever since, used now for storage, the painted sign fading, the display window still looking out over Margaret Street at a town that has been getting quieter for 60 years. The listing calls this an exciting opportunity for renovators, investors, or buyers seeking a project with character and history. That description is not wrong. The character is genuinely there. The veranda, the hardwood floors, the old shop front with its hand-lettered sign. The history is also real, and the census captures which direction it has been running. For $100,000, you are buying a fibro home with original floors, a partially demolished bathroom, a former haberdashery on the block, no nearby hospital, no public transport, and a town that will be smaller next year than it was this year. Whether that is an opportunity or an obstacle depends entirely on who you are. That person just hasn't shown up yet. 5 houses, 5 corners of New South Wales, 5 prices that would look like a misprint in almost any suburb you can name. What they have in common is not the catch, because as you have seen, no 2 catches are the same. What they have in common is that the information explaining each price was always there. The census data on Mungindi is public. The land title on River Street is searchable. The Ardlethan DA process is on the council's own website. The Moree flood history is documented in the council's own words. The Quandialla population decline is in the ABS figures. None of it is hidden. The price is simply what happens when enough buyers do that research and reach the same conclusion. Somewhere in New South Wales right now, one of these properties is the right fit for someone watching this video. The question is whether you are that person, and whether the catch you just heard is the one you can actually live with. Tell me in the comments. I read every one. See you in the next one.